The night that it all broke, I was referred to be just a housewife by someone who looked me in the eye 10 years ago. At a high school reunion, 6 words are thrown out like lint with the intention of landing gently, possibly even innocuously. However, those 6 words, that night, they exploded something inside of me. Something profound. A sharp object. And, if I'm being honest, there might be an unavoidable element. It was one of those incredibly formal evenings, you know. An expensive hotel ballroom that makes an excessive effort to pass itself off as nostalgic. A jazz cover band wheezing through a Coltrane song, dim chandeliers, and poor wine. It smelled of tension, cologne, and someone's effort at truffle oil ambition beyond its prime. I was acting the part while twirling a glass of club soda by the refreshment table. A tidy ponytail is pulled back. I had owned a timeless black dress for many years. Suburban, easy, invisible. That was the strategy. Being seen is not why I came here. I came to observe. Michael Roberts was standing across the room, holding court like the high school quarterback who was the best, but never quite got it out. The same overwhelming assurance, the same cheesy appeal, encircled by the same sycophants who used to follow him along corridors lined with lockers like ducklings. His laughter was a bit too loud. Like confetti, corporate jargon was thrown around, made certain that everyone was aware of his continued importance. He then uttered my name. Sarah Thompson? People turned. I took a sip of my beverage. Michael smiled as he looked across the crowd before focusing on me. Whoa, I haven't seen Sarah in a long time. What? She became a full-time mother, didn't she? Now you're just a housewife? Merely a housewife. Then came the forced, courteous laughs. The kind of laughter that is motivated by loyalty rather than the joke. About being aware of who is and is not still someone in the room. I grinned. I simply smiled and let the moment go. That was all I did. For Michael's sake? He didn't know. He was unaware that the business his company had been attempting to merge with for the last 6 months, the enigmatic player they were unable to acquire, was actually mine. She was the founder and CEO of Quantum Horizon Technologies, a company with enough predictive AI firepower to subtly upend the whole logistics industry, but he was unaware that she had just been demoted to domestic irrelevance. He had no idea that the housewife he had snubbed had been working behind the scenes for 10 years, creating an empire in between bedtime tales and school runs. However, he would. Very, very soon. I allowed him to come up to me that evening. I performed the role flawlessly. You look fantastic, Sarah, he continued, his condescending grin just visible beneath his immaculately capped teeth. Are you still occupied at home? Like a mirror. I cocked my head to match his tone. I sipped my drink and remarked, there's always something to do. Already forgetting me once more, he moved on. That night, I didn't get much sleep. Rather, I watched the market ticker discreetly scroll over 3 enormous monitors while I sat in my home office, which is the one concealed behind a fake bookshelf in the den. Our most recent acquisition was confirmed, according to a message from my coup, the final piece of my plan before Phase 1. Michael's company? Global Enterprises Roberts? Their desire to combine with Quantum Horizon had been intense. We were inventive, nimble, and globally scalable everything they weren't. And totally anonymous. Who was behind the curtain was unknown to them. I liked it like that. That night, I spent a lot of time gazing out the window. The streets were calm and dark, except for the soft hum of the servers operating beneath my flooring. The home was quiet. And those words came back to me. Merely a housewife. I have spent years wearing that title like armor. Allow others to undervalue me. When they imagined I spent my days organizing my meals and vacuuming, I smiled nicely. I never fixed them. I needed people to think the narrative was real, because I was creating something they couldn't even understand while they were busy ignoring me. I'm not from a wealthy family. I didn't attend MIT or Stanford. However, I started teaching myself everything following the birth of my daughter. Code, algorithms, cycles of the market. Blockchain. With a baby monitor on my desk and a newborn on my hip, I attended online classes. With one hand, I would rock her to sleep, and with the other, I would create prediction models. Ambition is often equated with late nights in glass buildings. Mine appeared to be a financial statement with juice spilled on it. Conference calls while playing soccer. Reheating chicken nuggets while coding. Being a mother didn't slow me down. It helped me concentrate. And now, I was prepared. The reunion had ended. The mask was removed. Michael simply wasn't aware of it yet. In precisely 7 days, the merger proposal I had drafted would reach his inbox through middlemen, of course. The use of strategic signatures, deception, and layers of anonymity would be futile. He would rush. He would squat. He would attempt to determine who was tricking him. He wouldn't believe it was me. He would sense it, though. That proposal's entire wording was designed to make him cringe, not in a derogatory way, but rather with confusion. It was a power challenge written in his mother tongue, and I would be there to see his realization when the reality finally hit him in the ego. From the dark, from the kitchen, while they were away, I constructed a throne. The idea that startled him 7 days. I waited that long following the reconnection. The proposal had been ready for weeks, so I didn't need more time. But timing is important, particularly if you want someone to experience it. Michael Roberts discovered a document that would keep him up at night when he opened his inbox on the 7th day. I could have seen that without being there. I was already aware of the bewilderment, the curiosity, and the ego taking over, the gradual awakening to the fact that someone else was engaging in a game he didn't comprehend. QH Strategic Group submitted the proposal, which was approved with a simple logo and no name. All bait, expertly prepared, anonymous, elegant, full of projections, synergies, and cutting-edge technology integrations. Inside it, triggers, not dangers, simply points of pressure, small clues that we had completed our assignments, that we were aware of his shortcomings, voids in his firm, the mistakes of his team, not enough to cause them to leave, just enough to make them uneasy. The intention was not to frighten him. I wanted him to come after me, and he did. I received the first email, which was sent through our front intermediate firm, 2 days after the proposal was dropped. Courteous. Wondering. I realized it was working when someone asked for a conversation. From the other side of the room, Elena murmured, "Let's set a virtual." She was my coup, my strongest ally and protector. I'm a brilliant MIT graduate who doesn't have time for nonsense. Silence and strategy were the same language between us. We decided on a day and established a channel with a background blur and voice modulation through a secure virtual layer. To hide forever was not the plan. It was too uneasy. From the first hello, let them know we were in charge. Even before anyone spoke at the beginning of the meeting, I could hear the tension. It was Michael who spoke first. "This is unexpected," he said. The surface was calm, but I could hear the edge. When men like him realize they are no longer the sharpest person in the room, they adopt that tight, clipped tone. He went on, "You've produced a pretty impressive document. We would like additional information about your executive team." Despite his inability to see me, I grinned. I answered, "We would rather let the work speak for itself first." I spoke in a smooth, controlled tone. The goal was that it didn't sound like me. Outcomes, not titles, provide clarity. That was something he detested. In the ensuing quiet, I could hear it. Meetings where people fumbled to present their credentials were nothing new to him. To make an impression. To give in. However, I wasn't here to win him over. I was here to dispel all of his preconceived notions about power. Elena kept an eye on everything behind the scenes, including real-time AI sentiment analysis, speech inflections, and micro pauses. It wasn't a guess. He was being studied by us like a test subject. Michael, too? He was falling apart, not in a big way. Slowly, like a thread pulling at a suit's hem. Halfway through the call, his team joined. CTO, David Chin was worn out and irritated, as if he hadn't had a significant victory in a long time. I'd read every board comment and story about him. After last year's unsuccessful rollout, I knew he was under pressure. I was aware that his marriage had recently dissolved, and I understood that he was yearning to make a difference once more in that vulnerable spot. Therefore, we ensured that the proposition resonated with him as well. Incorporations of advanced AI, exclusive modeling, strategic autonomy. We explained everything in ambiguous yet alluring business jargon. Not falsehoods, only possibilities. If they were astute enough to continue listening, they could practically touch the future. And they did. Michael made an effort to regain control of the conversation. However, each time he leaned forward, we took a sidestep. Be calm, detached, in command. He was terrified since he had no idea with whom he was dealing. There were no decisions made at the conclusion of the meeting. No assurances. Before disconnecting, I just left this line hanging in the air. This collaboration has promise, but only if everyone is prepared to change. Click. Quiet. I reclined on my seat and gazed up at the ceiling. The problem with retaliation, especially genuine retaliation, is that it's not always evident. It can appear to be water at times, slow, be patient, unavoidable. And now, Michael was not even aware that he was about to sink. That evening, I sipped tea while sitting in the dark in the office chair with my legs folded beneath me. No screens. Don't use spreadsheets. Simply be silent. From her dad's place, my daughter Ava texted me, asking if I had completed the task yet. I chuckled quietly. She referred to it as the thing. Naturally, she was unaware of the specifics, but she had witnessed my construction. Every night she walked into my office to inquire about the meaning of the glowing graphs. Over the years, she somehow grasped the rhythm of strategy before she could even spell it, even though I would teach it in bits and pieces and let her sit on my lap and help. Almost, I texted her back. A gif of a chessboard turning over was her response. That's my gal. Elena left a dossier on my desk the following day, which included a detailed analysis of Roberts Global's current state, their weaknesses, their points of leverage, their dependence on a highly specialized credit arrangement from a group of European banks. We could alter their valuation without ever affecting their shares if we played this correctly, which we would. What's the best part? They were still unaware of my identity. It was inevitable. Finally. Not yet, though. No, I wanted this bargain to appeal to Michael, to court it, in order to throw his board, to stake his reputation on it. I wouldn't pull the curtain till after that. Let him realize that the woman he dismissed as a housewife at a high school reunion was actually the one transforming his empire into a chessboard, and that I was in charge of every move he made. The offer's hidden catch. The problem with setting a trap is that people will avoid it if it's too evident. However, they will pass right through without ever noticing if it is too subtle. You're looking for something in the middle, something that gives them a sense of discovery, as if walking in was their idea. You snag someone like Michael Roberts that way. A list of follow-up questions was sent by Roberts Global 2 days following our encrypted call. They're cautiously enthusiastic, but they've bought the fantasy, and that's the type of question a firm asks when they're already thinking preparing a press release. They are currently trying to figure out what color to paint it. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent them the merger plan in version 2. Cleaner, sharper, and full of possibilities. No names, no faces. There was just enough technical genius to make people gasp, enough drive to keep Michael interested. While looking through the manuscript on her tablet, Elena remarked, "You're stroking his ego." "Exactly," I replied. That was the idea. Michael would grow weary if he believed he was pursuing a ghost. But what if he believed he was up against one? He'd be up at night doing that. Additionally, the second proposal did something different. It made things more complicated. Ambiguity and strategy. None of it was explicit, but it made references to larger collaborations, other offers, and ticking clocks. Words like selective, time-sensitive, and multi-phase rollout are just meant to make them lean in rather than back off. They leaned in as well. Hard. This time, the CTO, David Chin, made direct contact. Naturally, it was through a shell corporation, but we were certain it was him. "I don't know how you're doing this, and it's driving me nuts." That's what he meant when he asked for technical clarity. Elena marked the message as suspicious. "Bait is effective," she stated. I gave a nod. It's time to expand the net. I had moved our internal teams by the end of the week. Now, half were devoted to predictive modeling, which involved simulating Roberts Global's most likely answers. The other half? Profiling of the mind. Not owned by the business, of the populace. Because most executives overlook the fact that organizations do not make decisions, individuals do. Additionally, humans are predictable, particularly when under duress. Already obvious were Michael's pressure points. He couldn't tolerate losing control. Perception was his lifeblood. He only enjoyed the chase if he believed the victory was certain. But David's? His were not like that. He required direction. He still thought he was a genius, but he wanted someone to recognize it. And before the floor gave way beneath him, he needed a way out. So, without uttering a single word, I gave him everything. Whispers. Press articles written by anonymous people. Industry chit-chat. The sort of digital trail that feels authentic yet is too clean to track. There have been rumors of QH Strategic Group, the mysterious upstart with disruptive architecture, next-generation AI systems, and military-grade encryption. Some buzz in fintech subreddits, a few seeded mentions in specialized forums. Everyone came to the same conclusion: the person responsible wasn't only intelligent, they posed a threat. All of a sudden, Roberts Global refused to just combine with us. They had to. 3 nights later, I was by myself in my office, tapping my fingers on the desk, while the monitor's glow filled the space like a silent control center. It was almost midnight. The street was quiet outside, only sometimes disturbed by a dog walker crunching on gravel or a distant bark. Upstairs, my daughter was fast sleeping. After a shockingly in-depth discussion on Athena mythology and the concept of invisible wisdom, I had tucked her in hours before. At 12, she knew more about power than most men I had ever encountered. "Remember your sword," she whispered as she planted a kiss on my cheek. I didn't. The final draft of the merger proposal was available the following morning. It was lovely, not dazzling, not too complicated. Like a scalpel, slim, sharp, and purposeful. Each paragraph served as a prelude. Each chart is a mirror. Michael would bring this to his board, as we all knew. We knew they would probe, inquire, and argue. Therefore, we infused the paper with ambiguity, just enough opacity to compel internal debate, and enough technical genius to draw them in. We wanted them to quarrel, to reconsider, to reflect, because they wouldn't pay attention to what was going on outside of it, while they were preoccupied with the proposition. Roberts Global established a comprehensive task group before the end of the week specifically to evaluate QH Strategic Group. We knew it was time to pull a lever at that point. As I saw a heat map of digital interest spread over Southeast Asia, I replied, "Let's shift, David." Elena's eyebrow went up. "Now?" "He's prepared." She didn't dispute. When she realized I was correct, she never did. So we made contact. Of course, not directly. Via a former MIT classmate who is currently employed by one of our shell consultancies. Only a proposal, a murmur of curiosity. His long-forgotten white paper from 5 years ago, which never received any notoriety, received a commendation. It wasn't a compliment. It was a mirror. Relevance was something we provided him that he hadn't experienced in years. He then bit. Not entirely. Not in public. However, he began responding more quickly, began to delve farther, began asking Michael more questions. The fracture suddenly grew wider. That weekend, I watched 2 squirrels battle over a piece of bread in the driveway while sipping coffee by the kitchen window. They made circles, lunging, retreating, and lunging once more, till the quieter one simply grabbed it while the other one blinked. It's funny how apparent a tactic appears when you're not using it. Michael continued to believe he was pursuing a romantic relationship. He was unaware that he was being led, one soft breadcrumb at a time, toward a precipice. What's the best part? I still hadn't removed the mask. The disclosure at the Innovation Summit, I had no intention of revealing who I was. It was meant to be silent, delicate. In the long run, it's just another move. But sometimes you're asked to do more. There are moments that simply must be claimed. The final act, the stage where deals were whispered and reputations were quietly made or damaged, the prime location, and the closing speech had all been assigned to Roberts Global. That stage was Michael's favorite. He had always done so. Everyone is watching. Every light. He alone. He was unaware that I would be watching. He was unaware that, under a different name, I had been on the agenda for months. Furthermore, he had no idea that the housewife he made fun of at a high school reunion would soon ruin his story, in front of the very people he had worked so hard to win over. Nerves and ambition filled the convention center. Cozy lighting, cold coffee, too much effort is put into making expensive outfits look casual. Everyone was acting as though they weren't observing one another. I got there early. Sharp, uncomplicated, and clean. I wore black once more. Nothing spoke out for attention, no jewelry, no branding. The kind of subtle presence that makes people take a second look. I sat down in the center of the space. Not on the front row, not hiding. There, just there. 10 minutes prior to his presentation, Michael arrived, accompanied by his board members and David Chin, who appeared to have been sleep-deprived for a week. His gaze wandered aimlessly around the crowd. He failed to notice me. Not quite yet. The lights went down. Michael walked up to the podium with a polished, trained voice that exuded confidence that had been practiced rather than earned. He declared, "A new era is upon us, and the leader in this regard is Roberts Global." I paid attention to the gaps between them, not to his words. The way he over-relied on technical terms. Every time he brought up QH Strategic Group, his tone changed. Bravado wrapped around uncertainty. After 15 minutes, he handed the microphone over to David. David, poor guy. He made an effort to sound inspired. However, you could hear the weight in his breath, the hesitation in his voice. He had lost faith in this vision. He knew, deep down, somewhere. He was still unaware that it was me. However, he was aware that something was off, that this merger and this offer weren't gifts. It was a mirror, and the fissures were beginning to appear. I got up. Not in a big way, not to be critical, simply because the time had come. Without being instructed, the room fell silent. Like static before a storm, you sensed a change. Calm and steady, I made my way to the stage. Half annoyed, Michael looked about. Then his expression altered. Recognition, perplexity, and a glimmer of something more profound, something he refused to identify. Fear. I moved to stand next to him. Without asking, I took the microphone, looked at the journalists, executives, and analysts in the audience, and then directly at him. I was standing next to a refreshment table at a reunion 10 years ago when this man introduced me as just a housewife, I said steadily. A pause occurred. Not the clumsy sort, the listening sort. And I was creating something else while he continued to use noise and outdated tactics to build an empire. Something tangible. I connected a little drive. Behind us, the projector screen flashed before displaying data. Actual data. The kind you don't pretend to be. Measurements. Systems. Bas evidence. I asserted, QH Strategic Group is not a ghost. Quantum Horizon Technologies is the company. Additionally, I am its CEO and founder. Shocks. Whispers. Eyes darting in all directions. Michael stopped. I swiveled in his direction. I whispered, "You came chasing a merger. However, you never pursued a romantic companion. You were pursuing someone to solve the issues you refused to acknowledge existed." There was utter silence in the crowd. The last slide, which was a side-by-side comparison, was then displayed. Their present forecasts. Ours, their malfunctioning systems. Our predictive technology, their obstructions. Our artificial intelligence solutions. Not an assault. A tribute. Even yet, I maintained a composed tone. Not upset, not arrogant. Just the facts. Tidy, unquestionable. Michael opened his mouth to speak, but his words fell flat. The authority was gone, but his mouth moved. Like a poor suit in the rain, it had fallen off him. David Chin took the initiative. He remained silent. He was not required to. His expression conveyed not only amazement, but also respect. Not because of what I had done, but because of how I had done it. After I was done, I walked off the stage without looking back. I wasn't dramatic, since I didn't have to give him another glance. I had said it all already. My daughter FaceTimed me from home later while I was back at the motel. With a large blanket draped over her shoulders like a cape, she was eating cereal on the floor. "You succeeded, didn't you?" she inquired. I grinned. "Indeed, I did. With a moment of seriousness, she nodded. You didn't even have to shout. I paused at that, since she understood. Real power isn't loud, which is what most people overlook. The shouting isn't it. Knowing is the key. The silent assurance that others will pay attention when you eventually speak. Additionally, everything changes when you move. The silent empire 5 years have passed since Michael Roberts' stage lights went out. I no longer give him much thought. Not in the manner that people anticipate. Anger is no longer present. No warmth, only distance. Like a picture hidden in a drawer, the kind you only come across while ridding yourself of the past. And even then, you don't search for very long. His business fell apart just as we had anticipated. It was quiet at first, a few goals were missed. There were too many reshuffles, but it became louder when the investors began to ask the incorrect questions and the correct answers were never provided. Roberts Global was neither Roberts nor Global by the end of the year. I also didn't have to do anything. Once the truth is known, it becomes serious in and of itself. You don't have to force it. It drops. Not only did Quantum Horizon make it through the storm was us. Offers poured in after the summit more quickly than we could read them. Think tanks, acquisitions, partnerships, and the media. Everyone was curious about how we created a ghost business that could pass through walls. We didn't respond to them. Not at all. Since what we constructed wasn't a ruse, it was patience. Silence for 10 years. I've allowed people to talk over me for 10 years. Don't underestimate me. Don't even remember I was in the room. Building for 10 years without making an announcement. I was coding at 2 in the morning while others were pursuing power in boardrooms. Next to me, a baby monitor crackling. I was warming soup with one hand and cross-referencing supply chain models with the other while they were playing golf with investors. And now, I now manage an empire. Not a noisy one. It's not a shiny one. A silent one. We don't brag. We grow. We don't make pitches. We find a solution. We create our own table. We don't go to everyone. Sometimes the media still makes mistakes. They desire the story of the lady who torched the land, the dramatic takedown, and the revenge narrative. However, this was not what it was. Fire was never the issue here. It had to do with roots, about developing something so profound that it would be impervious to storms. I now have Elena's office next to mine. She has yet to engage in small talk, still completes my sentences in the middle. Coffee, numbers, and ideas are the main topics of our quiet morning sessions. When the mission is clear, there is no need to perform. These days, we are creating more than just technology. Initiatives in education, scholarships that are strategic, networks of invisible mentorship that teach the next generation of women how to navigate a society that still doesn't understand how to recognize them. Ava, my daughter, turned 17 recently. She presented a TEDx lecture on algorithmic prejudice and systems thinking at her school last month. Power doesn't ask to be noticed was the slide she used to end her presentation, which began with a story about Athena. It merely shifts the space. I wasn't asked to assist her in writing it. She didn't have to. She grew up with a strategic mindset. She is aware of when to talk, as well as when to let quiet speak for itself. She already outperforms me. And that's what matters. I once received an email from Michael, a year following the summit. Only a single line, I didn't anticipate it. I never answered. What could be said? The fact that he failed to see what was directly in front of him was not unique to him. He will not be the final one. They seek power and loudness, which is why people like him. In performance evaluations, business cars, outfits, and titles. However, true power doesn't shout. It waits. It observes. In the silence, the darkness, and the times when no one is there to notice, it grows. That is the home of legacy. I occasionally go by the workplace simply to listen, not to the noise, but to the hum, of minds synchronizing, of systems operating silently, of something far greater than myself precisely developing. I constructed this. However, it is not about me. That is the distinction between vision and ambition. Ambition seeks attention. Vision simply perceives. And the world I see now is still rife with fissures. There are still many blind spots. There are still many people who are taught they are just something, particularly women. Only a mom, merely a secretary, only a teacher, merely a housewife. In actuality, however, the revolution starts with just, within kitchens, in side projects, in whispered dreams, nap notes, and second shifts. This is no longer about me. Actually, it was never. It's about the aftermath. Ava came into my office last week and said, I discovered a bug in the adaptive equity algorithm while holding up her laptop. I examined it. She was correct. I grinned. Repair it. She smiled. I've already done. She started to go away but stopped at the door. Hi, Mom? Yes? I believe it's time for us to begin construction on something new. As I rewrote the rules in front of everyone, I noticed that she was a powerful, piercing, and caring force. I gave a nod. Always, I said. After that, I returned to my workstation and began drafting the next plan, while listening to the soft hum of the empire we had established. For what reason? The world is still in the dark about what lies ahead, and we have only just begun.